Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the UK Stroke Assembly live and in your homes. My name's Tony Banks, Head of Conference and Events at the Stroke Association, and I'm also really proud Chair of the UK Stroke Assembly. So we're back for our second round of the programme after a summer worth of webinars we've had already. We're now here in week 2 of the second round of the programme. You can catch up on everything so far if you've missed any of our webinars at stroke.org.uk/UKSA virtual. There's a whole host of content for you to take a look at there, especially last week's webinar where we talked about staying active, and we heard firsthand from people on some of the tips and guidance that they could provide around staying both physically and mentally active after stroke. So please do check it out if you get the chance. If you're on social media, we'd love you to promote the Stroke Assembly webinars. You can use the hashtag Stroke Assembly if you're using Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. Please do post and spread the word. Today, we're talking about taking action. We're also talking about staying connected, and we're talking about the support that is available for younger people affected by stroke. We'll introduce our panel very shortly. But before we do, we've got Natalie with us, as always, to take your questions and comments. We're really looking forward to hearing from you this morning, so please do post. And Natalie will tell you how to do that now. Good morning, Nat.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for today's session. As always, if you would like to share any comments and questions today, please do use our chat bar. You can find this on the right-hand side of your page, and if you scroll down right to the bottom, you'll be able to enter your comments and questions into the text bar and submit using the little arrow key. I look forward to reading all of those.
Thanks, Natalie. So do please post. We'd love to hear from you this morning and put your questions to our panel. Talking of our panel, let's introduce them now. We are really lucky to have some great speakers with us this morning to share their stories with you. We're talking about stroke in younger adults, and I'm delighted to say we've got Jenny Clarke, CEO of the Same You charity, with us this morning. We're also joined by Austin Willett, CEO of Different Strokes. And finally, last but not least, we're joined by Erin Losty, who is one of the stars. I'm sure you've seen the Stroke Association's advertisement campaigns on TV. Erin's one of the stars of that campaign and is here to share her story with you this morning too. So let's welcome our panel on screen and say good morning. Hi, everyone.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning. Before we begin, maybe some brief introductions. Jenny, maybe let's start with you. Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Yes, no, that's great. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting Same You to be on your panel. I'm personally very proud to know the Stroke Association. Juliet has been a tremendous coach and mentor to me personally, and I think the work you do is fantastic. I am the CEO of a startup charity. We've been going 18 months, and my daughter is Emilia Clarke, the actor and activist, and I am a carer because of her experiences, and I'm also a patient because I've got 2 aneurysms.
Thanks, Jenny. We're so pleased to have you on with us this morning. We're going to talk about Same You, the journey that you've been on in your first 18 months of the charity, and you're going to share a little bit more about Emilia's story this morning with us as well. So thanks for being with us. Austin, good morning. Long-term charity partners with the Stroke Association. It's great to have Different Strokes back at the Stroke Assembly. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Tony, and thanks for inviting me. It's great to be able to speak to everyone today. My name's Austin Willett. I'm Chief Executive of Different Strokes. We were founded in 1996, so we've been going 24 years now, and we're a charity that supports working age and younger stroke survivors.
Thanks for being with us this morning, Austin. I know many of our audience will be familiar with Different Strokes, perhaps used your services as well as the Stroke Associations and perhaps Same You as well. So please do post your questions for Austin and Jenny throughout. And Erin, good morning. As I said a minute ago, one of the stars of our Rebuilding Lives campaign, the television advertisement, people will be familiar with your face, I'm sure. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. No, it's a pleasure to be able to share my story. So I've been involved with the Stroke Association volunteering for over 2 years now. I had my stroke in 2012, but didn't actually manage to find the Stroke Association until just over 2 years ago. And I've been an ambassador, and I go to a few talks and kind of just tell my story. And I've also been quite heavily involved in the Rebuilding Lives campaign, which has been really fantastic, really good at raising awareness within younger stroke survivors and throughout, you know, the within the public eye and everything, which has been fantastic. And also just, I guess, raising hope for those who have been affected by stroke, which has been really, really fantastic.
Thanks, Erin. I think Erin's underselling her role with us a little bit there. She's a huge ambassador for the Stroke Association. We're incredibly grateful for your ongoing support. I'm going to talk a little bit about Rebuilding Lives and the campaign you featured in a moment. So for everybody watching today, the topic is stroke in younger adults. Please do share your experiences, ask your questions, as I say, to the panel, and share your comments in the chat box. And throughout, we're going to share some videos and some pictures, and Natalie will post relevant links in the chat box where we can to the support that's available for you out there if you've been affected by any of the things that we're talking about today. So let's begin. Erin, I'd like to actually begin with you, if that's okay. You mentioned your stroke a moment ago, but perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about the stroke, your stroke journey, and maybe talk a little bit about the campaign and the work you've done with the Stroke Association in more detail.
So my story begins in 2012. I had my stroke. I actually had a bleed on the brain, a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage, but basically it was a huge headache. I spent a month in hospital. Then when I came out, I got great care in hospital. I came out and there was a bit of a kind of a cliff fall of support, kind of, and I couldn't really find any support, but kind of just tried to rebuild my life slowly. The few kind of like trying to get myself back together, was trying to get to Sainsbury's or trying to get to the shops or trying to, then after a few months of it, I actually tried to get back to work. So I finally did get back to work full time, and then actually gave that up and actually went on to study and to try and do a PhD, which I actually graduated from in lockdown. I had a graduation in lockdown, which was quite surreal. And yeah, so while I was actually writing up my PhD, I actually just came upon the Stroke Association in the local supermarket. And one of the things that I think is important is that I actually didn't realize that I had had a type of stroke, and I didn't realize for a good few years. So I didn't know where to look for that support as well. And I looked upon other charities and but it wasn't until I actually found the Stroke Association that I actually found somewhere that I felt I belonged more, and somewhere that I could find people that I could actually relate to. When I said, oh, I feel tired today, or I feel such and such thing today, other people said, yes, I know how that feels. And I really believe that they did. And I think that's really important within the Stroke Association. But I've come quite far in my recovery. And I've been through a lot of really, really tough times. And, you know, I've come out of them as best as I can. So to now be able to give back and volunteer within the Stroke Association just gives me that platform to be able to do so, and actually just give on some of the tricks or tips that I've actually managed to adapt to my new life. That's pretty much my story.
It's an incredible story, Erin, and I mean, graduating in lockdown, for starters, huge congratulations. I'm sure it wasn't the graduation you were expecting, but an amazing achievement nonetheless. Erin, we mentioned Rebuilding Lives. That's been a big part of the work you've done with the Stroke Association. I'm sure our audience are familiar with the campaign. In fact, I know they will be. But do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that and what it's meant to you to be part of that campaign?
Yeah, how I got involved was, well, I found the Stroke Association first, and then in telling my story, I was asked, did I want to be involved? And I said, yes, of course I do. I would love to tell my story, especially since I've rebuilt my life, and I am actually continuing to do so. And to be able to tell people through that within this platform was, it was just so important to me. The Rebuilding Lives campaign and the people that I've even met through the Rebuilding Lives, and other people that have managed to, achieve so many great things regardless of what they've been through, has just been absolutely fantastic. And the other people involved in the rebuild, and meeting them, we've all been, and they've all been through so much, but just to get to where us as a collective are is such an important message that I think it was a no-brainer. I was definitely going to be involved. But yeah, the artist was fantastic when she came over, but just being involved was really fantastic.
We're just taking a look at some images on screen of your involvement in that campaign now, and it is an award-winning campaign now as well, isn't it? We've had some fantastic news at the Stroke Association over the last few weeks, a number of awards that the campaign has won, which in itself helps to raise awareness of stroke and the Stroke Association on a huge platform. So again, congratulations for being part of an award-winning campaign.
Yeah, thank you. No, I only put my face in it and told my story. I think all the people in the background that did all the fantastic work really were the stars of the show, really.
I mean, I don't need any excuse to show the advert. I know our audience has probably seen it a few times already, but I think this is a great opportunity to take a look. We've got the video lined up. It's the 30-second version of the advert, but let's take a look at it now if we can and see your involvement.
There's something not right and I start to panic.
My brain fell out.
My body drained and then I disappeared.
I woke up, everything was spinning.
Your life is in a trap. Over time it's getting better.
Hopefully some of these fingers might work again.
Every day is a challenge.
You need that extra support to get you through.
I am Baz.
I'm Alicia.
I'm Paul.
I'm Luna. I'm a stroke survivor.
There it is. There's loads more information on our website about the Rebuilding Lives campaign. You can read more on Erin's story as well and the other stars of that advert, and we'll post the links in the chat box shortly if we can. Erin, we'll come back to you in a moment. I want to talk a little bit more about the point you mentioned around talking to others and how important that was actually, and we'll come back to that in a moment if that's okay. But Jenny, I might come to you next if that's okay with you. Same You, a charity partner of the Stroke Association. We're really glad to be working with you all at Same You. But do you want to start maybe by telling our audience a little bit about the charity, why it was set up in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. So I've got a couple of slides, if that's okay, to sort of help things be clear. So if I start with the first slide, really, one very important message is that we've started the charity to amplify, to use Emilia's platform to make a louder noise for all your voices. So everybody who's had a stroke, everybody who's had a brain injury, including traumatic brain injury, we see the terrible, important need to make everybody's voices heard. So this charity is not about Emilia, but it's enabled by Emilia. So her story is quite similar to many others. In fact, probably very similar to yours, Erin. She was 23. She just filmed the first episode of Game of Thrones. So already her life had completely changed. And it was an extraordinary time to be her mum and to witness it. So she was having, the time of her life. And all of a sudden she was exercising in the gym, and she had the first of her 2 subarachnoid hemorrhages. So that was in 2011. The next one, and she survived. She went to the wonderful Queen Square in London and had marvellous treatment. I won't talk too much about all the things that she went through, because she's talked to the New Yorker and talked to many other publications about it. But the second one was, in fact, even more of a shock, because she was working in New York, and she went for a checkup, and she had found that the second aneurysm that she had had grown, and she was. It was suggested that she has a procedure that would be preventative to stop her having a stroke, and it didn't really work out that way. So she did have to have open head surgery. The first aneurysm was treated with coiling. Then she had open head surgery. Then she had 2 more strokes on the operating theatre, and it was really, really touch and go. So we have been through some really dark times. She's obviously been through a lot, and so her, small family, my husband when he was alive, myself and my son, we were there for her, obviously. And we thought, well, okay, just what on earth could we do? Because we were so grateful and so humbled that she'd actually survived twice. And we saw absolutely firsthand that whatever happens to you, your life is forever changed. There's nobody that goes through this incredible trauma and is the same person again. So we decided a couple of years ago, we'd worked quite over a few years to think about what we would do. And we felt that because she has got a profile, she maybe can amplify everybody else's voice. So about 18 months ago, we launched. And really, we've got all the things that everybody has. We've got visions, we've got mission statements, we've got all those things, and I'll go through those in a second. But really, I think that the words that Emilia spoke herself is our purpose. She really wants to see whatever she and us, our small, wonderful team, can do to help people after a brain injury feel they haven't lost who they really are, which is why we call the charity Same You. So we've got another slide, and really what we are here to do. We're a very, very small team. We don't really ever intend to become a large charity. We want to work through partners like the Stroke Association and others to do certain things. So what we really want to do is to, first of all, raise awareness, because people don't understand about brain injury. People don't understand about stroke still, even though all the work that's been done has been effective. There's still such a huge story to tell. People don't understand that 1 in 3 people will suffer some sort of acquired brain injury at some point in their lives. We also were personally incredibly shocked to find that it just isn't a neuro rehab. It just isn't immediately available. I don't know about you, but we all understand how important research is, and Same You is funding research. We all understand why that's important. We all understand that everybody gets great care in acute situations, and we understand how vital it is for that research to come up with new ways of making that even better. But then, there somehow always has to be a third in life. But what is the third? Where is the recovery? Where is the rehab? So I'm obviously generalizing, and I hope that some of you have had great experiences in your journey to get back to who you feel you are. But it isn't equal. It isn't accessible to lots of people. So what we want to do is to raise awareness, to improve the reach, knowing that this is so important, and to increase understanding. So as well as the awareness, the other very, very important piece that we are tasked to do is to actually take some action. Now, what does that mean? So we think that taking action with Emilia's platform is by trying to work with wonderful philanthropists, wonderful corporations, and wonderful individuals to help raise significant monies to make a major change in how rehab is addressed. So there's quite a lot of work that we've done and are in the process of. So I haven't got a major story to tell you today, but we are working on, with a very wonderful hospital and university, we're working on a very particular project that we hope is going to be a blueprint for changing how people have access to neurorehabilitation after a stroke or an acquired brain injury. So what we really want to do is to do 3 things. We see that there is not enough evidence by any means, and unless you have evidence, you can't make change. And if something is not a priority, things are not measured. So one of the very important things that we're trying to do is to figure out how we get collectively a lot more people to measure the issue and measure the problem. We also believe that there's got to be innovation. So we know there's innovation in helping coiling, for instance, when you've had an aneurysm, but there isn't really a huge amount of effort put into finding real breakthrough ways of changing people's lives for the better and helping them recover. So we want to help find what these ways are and help fund those. And so that leads me into the transformational solutions. So we're working with some startups and clinical institutions to look at that. Excuse me. So maybe we go to the next slide while I cough. So what have we done since we launched? We found some really brilliant team members. So we have Tanya, who answers people's letters and talks to them and starts the conversation. We have Claire, who handles all our communications and marketing. We have Angela, who is our fundraising support team member. Oh, excuse me. We have Kate, who runs our operations. And we have Derek, who is our partnership director. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Do you want to take a glass of water, and we can maybe come back to this in a second? Just take a second. That's fine. Jenny, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing, but let's have a small break so you can grab a drink. Maybe it's a good opportunity to bring Austin in actually at this point. I want to talk a little bit more about the research in particular that Sam, you were interested in. But Austin, thanks for joining us this morning. We've worked for a long time with Different Strokes as two charities trying to improve the lives of people affected by stroke. We're talking about stroke in younger people today. Austin, could you maybe lay out what Different Strokes are trying to achieve as a charity and the work that you've been doing?
Of course, thank you, Tony. As I mentioned in my introduction, we were set up specifically to support younger stroke survivors. We don't put a defined age range on the people that we support, but it tends to be people of working age and younger. So a lot of the people we support are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, for example. Things are slowly changing, but stroke is still thought very, very much as something that only affects the elderly. And back in 1996, when we were founded, it was solely thought as something that affects the elderly. Thanks to the work that we're doing, Stroke Association, SameU, and other charities are doing, this perception is slowly changing. But as I said, that process is quite gradual. And many members of the general public still do think of stroke that only affects the elderly. Now, approximately 30,000 people of working age in the UK each year have a stroke. But for many of these people, because there still is this public perception that it only affects elderly people, a lot of these people that have a stroke at a young age think that no one else their age before has ever experienced this, and therefore they might not know who they can go to in order to get support. So an awful lot of what we do is based around peer support. It's based around connecting stroke survivors with other stroke survivors. It's putting them in touch with each other so that they're able to share their successes, so they're able to share their fears, share their challenges, and support each other in their ongoing recovery. We try and do this in as many ways as possible. And of course, one of the major reasons for that is stroke affects everyone in so many different ways, but not only are the effects of everyone's stroke different, but the kind of support that people are looking for might well be different as well. So we try and offer a range of diverse activities in order for people to get support. Firstly, we have about 40 local groups up and down the country. Where people are able to meet for peer support and exercise to help their ongoing rehabilitation. For obvious reasons, they haven't been meeting in the last 6 months, although many of those groups have still tended to meet each other via Zoom and other video conferencing platforms. One of the major things we have is a private Facebook group that has now grown to more than 5,600 members. And this is specifically for stroke survivors and very close relatives of stroke survivors. And again, it's an opportunity for people to be able to support each other, to raise issues of concern, to seek advice from other stroke survivors, but also very much to share what's going well in their lives, share their successes, and talk about their ongoing rehabilitation and recovery. An awful lot of what we do is phone support as well. Approximately half of the staff and trustees of Different Strokes are stroke survivors themselves, which fits in with our ethos of stroke survivors supporting other stroke survivors. So we have 3 stroke survivors based in our office and predominantly working from home now, who are available to do telephone support calls with other stroke survivors as and when they contact us. And leading on from this, one of the things we've introduced in the last 6 to 12 months, which we're very proud about, is we now have a teen and young adult befriending service where we've recruited 5 young stroke survivors in their 20s and early 30s who are available to provide one-to-one befriending and support to other young stroke survivors aged 16 to 25 to really help them come to terms with the fact that they've had a stroke at a very, very young age and what they're going through.
Thanks, Austin. It's great to hear about everything that the charity set out to achieve, and in particular, some of those services that I know you will have adapted as well during the global pandemic we've all been living through. And I want to talk about that next, if we can, actually. It's been a challenge for everyone across the whole entire globe, but we know the impact that coronavirus and the pandemic we've been living through has had on stroke survivors in particular. Erin, maybe if we could come back to you, if you don't mind, as a young stroke survivor, what kind of impact has this pandemic had on you, and that maybe some of the challenges that's presented with you?
Like you said, I think this is an extremely strange and quite stressful situation for everybody. So I think stroke survivors have that extra little bit of something that they have to, contend with and get over. But this is just completely unprecedented in any of our lifetimes. So having that as well as having the effects of a stroke are just, so many things to cope with. But it's strange because this actually reminds me of when I first came out of hospital, and I tended to stay away from people and noise and lights because I found it all. I still suffer to this day with it, but back then it was nearly all consuming, and I found I was actually staying away from everybody and staying away from people, and actually now we're kind of nearly forced to do it for a completely other different reason, which I find really, really strange. So some of it is actually kind of taking me back, which is quite strange. But I think to actually, for those who have, are in hospital now or have a stroke now, or within this time frame, it must be extremely stressful, to have something like that and then contend with something like this where you can't have visitors and you can't have people coming to you. And then those who, would normally go to peer support groups and things like that, when you can't, go to them, you can't see them. But I have to say, this is where our thankfully new age technology actually does come into play, where we have things like this, the Stroke Association webinars, the Stroke Assembly. I actually have a little ambassadors meeting, and we meet on Zoom every month, and I am actually meeting with them more than I would normally, as I usually go to work. So I'm meeting them on Zoom because you can tap in and tap out much easier. Which is, even today I was able to tap into this quickly and then go and do my job after. So there's, bringing that has actually brought some benefits as well, which is really, really good. But I do hope going forward that within the Stroke Association or Different Strokes or anywhere that they give, peer support to stroke survivors, that they continue doing both online services as well as in person. I think that's important because some people, especially if they've just come out of hospital, might not be able to go to the peer support yet, but unless they'll have that, online support then as well. So I think that's really, something positive coming out from an extremely stressful situation.
Thanks, Erin. I mean, peer-to-peer support, we know how important that is for people affected by stroke to keep connected. And yes, initially the coronavirus maybe prevented some of that face-to-face, but as you've said, that shift to digital has perhaps presented opportunity as much as it has been difficult for some. Maybe let's talk about that. Jenny, if I can bring you in at that point. We know, Same you were speaking about some research you've been working on and some exciting stuff that you've been doing as a charity. We've got a short video I know you want to play, but maybe if you just want to introduce that and tell us a little bit about how you've shifted online.
Yes, absolutely. So we obviously had to completely refocus, as we all have done. And so we talked to Queen Square, the hospital in London, and said, what can we do? And so Emilia did a call out on her Instagram and we raised some money. And so the money we gave completely to Queen Square and also to another hospital in Boston, USA, called Spalding Rehab Hospital that we work in partnership with. And so we ran 2 programs. So the Spalding one was an existing program that we sponsored on really how to use health and wellness techniques to get through when you haven't got the same amount of care support because of COVID. But the one that I think is really interesting and exciting is with UCL, Queen Square. They call it Enroll. And what it is, it's been running for 6 months. We're just coming to the end of it now. We're trying to raise some more money so it can continue. But they have treated online in group therapy clinics nearly 200 people. And so we've got a video that shows exactly how that's worked. And so this is pretty exciting.
Same You asked for your help during COVID. Your fundraising and generosity has enabled the pilot programme Enroll, virtual neurorehabilitation clinics led by UCL for stroke and brain injury patients.
Enroll is a form of tele-rehabilitation, so we have 1 or 2 therapists who are able to communicate with probably between 5 and maybe 20 patients in one session.
And up, now we're going to do 5 down, 5 up, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up, 5.
People join into the group remotely using technology that a lot of people will be familiar with, and they speak in real time to a therapist or group of therapists who talk them through that particular session.
UCL is already doing some work with Same You in the field of neuro-rehabilitation and neuro-recovery. And when the COVID-19 pandemic came along, they were very keen to do something innovative and useful. The thing that we identified was that it's likely that patients are going to get discharged from hospital much sooner than normal, and we'd have a large population of patients at home who are not receiving the neuro-rehabilitation that they need. And so it was really about trying to come up with innovative ways that we could get that kind of therapy and that kind of support into people's own homes.
We've got physiotherapists, clinical psychologists, speech and language therapists, and occupational therapists, as well as clinicians.
There are things that you can do with Enroll that you can't do with standard approaches. Simply we'll be able to reach more people.
The great thing about the group interactions is that people who are socially isolated on their own are able to get that peer support, and also we find that probably their sustained effort is maybe higher than they would be able to achieve at home because there's more people around them encouraging them.
People are in their own homes getting rehab, and they've told us that this is really great. So I think there's something about this in the future, that this may be a different way of meeting people's needs within their own homes, and I think that's really exciting.
We just want to thank all the people who have supported the Same You COVID-19 campaign. Without your help, this project to provide online support and rehabilitation for people with stroke and brain injury would just not have been possible. With your help, however, we've been able to get the project up and running and really begin to make a difference to people's lives. So, from all of us, thank you so much.
There's still more to do. Please support us and help us continue our work.
Jenny, huge thanks for allowing us to share that video today. And if people want to find out more about Enroll and the work Same You are doing, We're going to post some links in the chat box now, and you can see a lot more on the SameU website. Austin, I'd like to bring you back in if we can. We're running a little short on time, but I'm hoping we can also have some questions from the audience shortly. But before we do, I know Different Strokes, like all of us, have had to react to this pandemic and put some support in place remotely for people. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have, and much of the work that we do has moved online. Natalie, I don't know if you've got a short video available that you'd be able to queue up now. If that good.
Just got up, something's wrong. I waited up with wounds on my feet. Where will you be? Flickering through memories, the Polaroids yellowed in the sun, longing to be seen. So come and hide, hide with me, hide with me, hide with me. Come and hide, hide with me, hide with me, hide with
Thank you. So we've obviously adapted our services to moving a lot online, but we like to think that in a sense there's very little that we were doing 6 months ago that we haven't been able to continue, albeit in quite a different format. The main difference is that our groups haven't been able to meet, but we have moved a lot of our exercise sessions online. So we now do daily exercise sessions 5 days a week on Monday to Friday. And specifically what we do is we have them tiered at 5 different levels. So no matter what your physical situation is or what physical disabilities you might have, you know, there should be a class at an appropriate level that you're able to do on a weekly basis. We've always also introduced online Tai Chi. We have weekly guest speakers talking about a range of issues to do with health, well-being, other areas that are pertinent for stroke survivors. And we also release online each week weekly stroke survivor in lockdown videos where we talk through, you know, with a stroke survivor, what their experiences have been. I think Erin said something earlier that really resonated with me about you know, the hope that some of the online activities that will be introduced will continue in the long term. And certainly I've had more than one conversation with people in the last few months when we've looked at introducing new online services that have been along the lines of, why didn't we think of this before? And certainly if you think of something like online exercises, there are people who might find it very difficult to leave their house or are in geographically remote areas. And this is really key for them to have this resource online anyway. So certainly we're intending to continue with as much of the new activities as it's feasible to do so once the current situation gets back to something approaching normality again.
It's really good to hear that, Austin. And I think at the Stroke Association, I know we're having similar conversations around when we do get back to a sense of normality, how are we continuing to engage with people? Even with the Stroke Assembly, it's something we've traditionally done face-to-face, where we brought people together. We know that's important, and we want to continue some of that because it is important. But we've also reached so many more people by bringing this event online, and it's great to see new faces, perhaps people that wouldn't have been able to make the event in person. So such an important point. How do we continue to think about this moving forward? And thanks for Jenny and for us to mention about the support that's available there for people on your websites. We'll post the links again to both websites in the chat box. Little mention for some support available from the Stroke Association, particularly support available during the pandemic and beyond. My Stroke Guide, our digital self-help tool, many of you will be familiar with that already, but we'll post links to that as well, 24/7 support and advice available for people affected by stroke. And here for you, our telephone service and another service we've put in place to react to the pandemic and support people, particularly with some peer-to-peer support as well, which we've spoken about today, is so important. About 5 minutes left before we finish. I think I could talk to you all day about this, but let's bring Natalie on and see what questions and comments we've had from our audience this morning. I'm hoping Natalie's there. Not seeming to be able to bring Natalie on at the moment, so we'll bring her on as soon as we can. In the meantime, whilst we're trying to work out whether we can get Natalie back for your questions and comments, Erin, maybe one final wrap-up question for you, if you don't mind. A lot of our audience, we have got Natalie, so we'll come to you in a second, Natalie, but Erin, just whilst I'm on that question, just a lot of our audience, people affected by stroke, will be with us today. Do you have sort of an overarching message for people affected by stroke on supporting people in their recoveries? What was the most important thing for you in your recovery, do you think?
I think one of the main things was, on your bad day where you don't feel great, sit down, lie down, have a sleep, whatever you need to do, have a nap, because you'll wake up the next day, and if you feel good, do everything that you can, and when you're feeling good, and do a little bit more if you can, and then that will aid your recovery. And then when you need to sleep and you need to lie down and rest, just sleep, rest, do whatever you need to do. But whatever you do on your good days, keep going. But it's even more important to keep going on your bad days.
Thanks for that, Erin. I know that will resonate with so many people watching this morning. Natalie, you are with us. Welcome back.
I am. Apologies about that. We just had a few issues bringing me back on. But we've had some lovely comments in the comments box today, and it's been really nice to see lots of people chatting between themselves and sharing their stories with us. So thank you everyone who has shared that with us today. I'll try and get through as many questions as I can, and if I don't manage to get to your question, I will make a note and we will get back to you with some answers on those as well. But Erin, just to come to you quickly, there's been lots and lots of comments around congratulating you on your PhD, but some questions around how you managed your fatigue in that, so how you managed your daily life and academically studying at the same time.
The quick answer to that would be with absolute great difficulty, if I'm honest. Over time, the fatigue does get better, but fatigue and headaches is one of my huge issues that I still have to this day, I have to say. But in the beginning, you do feel more fatigued. So rest and do everything that you need to do when you feel your body is tired, or you feel your head is usually your head. Well, for me it was. Just rest, lie down. But just take everything in manageable, achievable chunks. Don't think, in a year I'll do this, I'll be here, I'll be there. No. In the next hour, I'll do this. In the next day, I'll do this. And take each day as it comes. And literally just rest when you need to. Listen to your body. It's really telling you everything you need to know.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. And just a quick question to Jenny. We've had a question here. What do you think was Emilia's reason for a get and go attitude for her to carry on and be the superstar that she is today?
So I think she's a very optimistic person, generally. She's very positive, and she's always had a positive attitude. I think that after the shock of having these two terrible experiences, I think that the main driver was that she had to go back on set and film another season of Game of Thrones. And she wanted to do it so much, and she forced herself to overcome the fear, because I'm sure people will be familiar with the sense that this could happen to me again. This is not, I'm too lucky, I'm okay, but maybe something else is going to happen, which is a terrible fear everybody has to live with. So I think really it was just the wonderfulness that she had this job that was so high profile that she had to do it.
Thank you, Jenny. And just to say, Austin, we've had lots of referrals to your Facebook page and different strokes resources on there. So there's a big sort of buzz around that on the chat today. So we'll post links to all those resources in our weekly email so everyone's able to find those. But thank you again for everyone who has shared their comments and questions today. And apologies that we didn't get to all of them. But I look forward to reading those next time. So thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. It has been very busy on the chat box today. This topic is clearly important to people, and I know everybody's really enjoyed hearing from yourself, Erin, Jenny, and Austin. We're really grateful to have you. As I said, I think we could probably talk for a few more hours easily about this. But for now, Jenny, thanks again for joining us from Same You, and thanks for the ongoing work that you're doing and Emilia's doing to raise awareness of stroke. And we look forward to hearing the progress of Enroll and everything else that you're doing in the future. Austin, thanks again for the continuing support and partnership working with Different Strokes. Good luck with everything you're doing, and we'll be keeping a close eye on everything, I'm sure, and seeing you very soon. And Erin, as always, it's such a pleasure hearing from you and your story. Rebuilding Lives is back. We're seeing that campaign again now, so we're going to see more of your face. But we hope to hear from you soon too. And thanks so much for your ongoing support as well. Thank you, everyone. This morning, we'll say goodbye for now to you all.
Bye.
And that is all the time we've got for this week's Stroke Assembly. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. We've mentioned a little bit about the importance of stroke research today, and next week on Wednesday at 11 o'clock, that's the topic of discussion, the importance of stroke research, and we are running a session called Amazing Brains, the Race Against Time. We'll send you all details of that session. Please do join us. It's going to be a great session. But for now, thanks for your questions, your comments today. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Goodbye for now.